Prior to being elected President of the United States, Jimmy Carter was a one-term senator from Georgia. He had no international or national experience. Although Carter had never dealt with foreign affairs, he already had his own plan on how to deal with them. He believed that the United States was a superior country and had to take control of leading a worldwide human rights movement. Although Carter did have some major accomplishments whilst dealing with foreign affairs, he faced many conflicts in office and was looked at as an overall failure. Jimmy Carter's foreign policy was significant because he created conflicts with countries around the world, established peace in the Middle East, and created an organization which continues to help countries around the world, even today. Jimmy Carter failed multiple times while attempting to deal with foreign affairs during his presidency. In his attempts to establish peace with countries around the world, he ended up creating more conflicts by boycotting the Russian Olympics, issuing a trade embargo on Russia, and sending troops to Afghanistan. Jimmy Carter's foreign policy was significant because he created conflicts with countries around the world. Carter believed that the United States had to be the world leader in the movement for basic human rights. He made his views very clear when he defined his foreign policy as, "Our policy is based on a historical vision of America's role. Our policy is derived from a larger view of global change. Our policy is rooted in our moral values, which never change. Our policy is reinforced by our material wealth and by our military power. Our policy is designed to serve mankind." By saying this, Carter made it very clear that he felt as if the United States was the only nation that could cure the corruption around the world. As Carter tried to put his plan into action, he only ended up creating more conflicts, instead of resolving the ones at hand. Carter's first failure came when he decided that the American athletes would boycott the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow. In 1979, Russian troops invaded Afghanistan to reinforce the country's communist regime against Islamic rebel forces. President Carter saw the Soviet invasion as a major threat to revive the Cold War, which during the late 1970s had appeared to undergo a temporary thaw. Carter declared that if the Soviet troops were not withdrawn from Afghanistan by February 20th, 1980, the United States would not be competing in the Olympic Games. The troops were not withdrawn, and the Americans did not compete. To further worsen relations with the Soviet Union, Carter increased pressure on the Soviets to abandon the war in Afghanistan. He issued a trade embargo on grain and information technology, two goods that the country was in desperate need of. He also banned the Soviets from fishing in American-controlled waters. Although Carter gained support from his own country by going through with the boycott, he greatly increased tension between the Soviet Union and many other nations in Europe and the Middle East. By trying to create peace, Carter ended up creating more conflict. Although Carter is seen as an overall failure while dealing with foreign affairs, there is one thing that he did to really change people's points of view about him. Carter succeeded in ending mostly all fighting between Israel and Egypt when he signed the Camp David Accords. Jimmy Carter's foreign policy was significant because he created peace in the Middle East. Carter managed to do this by creating the Camp David Accords. The Camp David Accords effectively ended fighting between Israel and Egypt. The Camp David Accords were agreements between these two countries signed on September 17, 1978, that led in the following year to a peace treaty. This was the first such peace treaty between Israel and any of its Arab neighbors. Jimmy Carter may have failed in many different scenarios with foreign affairs during his presidency, but what he succeeded in at Camp David made up for all his failures. Carter's pure stubbornness is what got the Israeli and Egyptian presidents to agree on this peace treaty. It's difficult to imagine any other American president doing what Carter did at Camp David. Most would not even have tried, and Carter's capacity for hard work, mastery of detail, moral integrity, and just plain stubbornness all came into play. The Egyptian president Sadat made history and also created an opening for peace when he became the first Egyptian leader to ever set foot on Israeli soil. This action was received by the Israeli president, who responded by taking steps into Egypt. The presidents of both countries then traveled to Camp David in America to negotiate a peace treaty. Jimmy Carter acted as the main negotiator between the two. President Sadat of Egypt was a very flexible and negotiable man. The president of Israel, on the other hand, was a tenacious leader and found no use in agreeing with anything that was not entirely in his country's favor. This made it very hard for Carter to come up with an agreement that would be in each country's favor. At one point, President Sadat became fed up with the summit and nearly left. On the morning of September 15th, after 11 days of negotiations, President Sadat told Secretary of State Vance he was leaving. Carter went to Sadat's cabin and told him, "Our friendship is over. You promised me that you would stay at Camp David as long as I was willing to negotiate. I consider this a serious blow to the relationship between Egypt and the United States." Sadat then agreed to stay. After the agreements were made, Carter was relieved to have succeeded in this venture. Carter's presidency could have been known as one of the worst in history had it not been for the Camp David Accords. Despite his many failures, Jimmy Carter still managed to have a lasting impact on the world today. He created the Carter Center, an organization which continues to help countries around the world. Jimmy Carter's presidency may have come to an end in 1980, but the things he did during his presidency still have a lasting impression on the world. Carter left the White House in 1981 and was denied his second term due to unpopularity during his first term. Carter's presidency was over, but he still had enough influence to change the world somehow. Carter implemented the Carter Center in 1982 in Atlanta, Georgia, to advance human rights and alleviate human suffering. Carter established this non-profit organization to promote democracy, prevent conflicts, and to monitor electoral events in other countries to support fair and free elections. The Carter Center works to stop diseases in third world countries as well. The Carter Center started work on stopping the guinea worm disease that plagued Africa and Asia in 1986. Since then, the Carter Center has managed to nearly eradicate the entire disease by taking actions such as distributing portable filters and initiating education programs to help break the cycle of the worm. The Carter Center's main accomplishment has been the elimination of more than 99% of the cases of guinea worm disease, from an estimated 3.5 million cases in 1986 to 148 reported cases in 2013. The Carter Center has also monitored 96 elections in 38 countries worldwide. When the Carter Center participates in elections, they send observers over to the country where the election is taking place and make sure that the election is run fairly. Before an election, Carter Center observers meet with election officials and party leaders to discuss electoral procedures. Sometimes they mediate election disputes and help all sides to agree on election rules. During this phase, assessments are made of the voter registration process, voter education efforts, and the fairness of the campaign field of play. The Carter Center has managed to settle conflicts in Haiti, Bosnia, North Korea, Ethiopia, and Sudan. In 2002, after 20 years of success with the Carter Center, Carter received a Nobel Peace Prize for his decades of untiring effort to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development. Carter is one of only 4 presidents of the United States to receive this prize, and only one that received it after his presidency was over.